the Milky Way roster that will be competing and recently earned the top seed in the Splatoon 3 North American League. So they would love to get sharp here because playoffs are next week. So you want to be playing your best heading into the playoffs. But taking a look here and zooming in, Humpback Pump Track. Oh my God. Larissa, did you hear the bad joke that we made on the cast with Fufu? I think it was last week, where
No.
there was a misspeak and it was called Jump Back Pump Track. And I said, no, that might actually be more accurate. I think that is what we should call this now. It is Jump Back Pump Track because that's what all these frontline players are going to be doing when things get bad.
Yes, I love that actually. That's so fitting because all of a sudden you look around and two of your teammates are down. You're just gonna want to jump back to spawn to regroup with your team. You can't really stay safe in that middle zone right there at the top of the hill by yourself.
Well, here we go, everybody. Okay, so we got edit versus pen. Okay, we got a little fun to be had. Taking a look, otherwise it seems to be a lot of old reliables. That is Hunter X, who is going to be Ice. Of course, anytime you see a Frozen Pro, you have a pretty good idea here. So not a lot of surprises on the Milky Way side. And, I love a good edit as much as anyone, but I think this is a really difficult stage to play it on at times because the pen, that little extra bit of range that it has, really changes how you can attack.
Yeah, there's a lot of good positions for that pen to stand on and be safe and just have those sniper type positions to be in. And if you're on the other team and don't have a pen, that pencil's just going to be consistently poking at you and using the range in a safe position.
Go. I think, yes, finally a couple do go down, and there it is. Jumping back, of course, is Brandon. Actually lands right next to Jared. That was so cute the way that happened. But Jared now going way in and fighting. Something interesting about the way that Jared tends to play those dualies here is that show loves to fight it out here and sometimes being the first into the fights with those, whereas some dualies maybe are the second or third into the fight, but willing to get up and mix it up kind of opens things up for the team. But as it stands right now, Rissa, they're kind of content just shuffling around and waiting for the moment to attack. They have not had a real move forward, although with Q flanking, maybe that has opened up.
Yeah, Q's like, you know what? I can go ahead and flank here. It's safe. And does just that. That has created a great opening for Milky Way to be able to finally take the zone. That was a bit, back and forth there for a while as each team was trying to get their footing initially. And now with little penalty points here, Milky Way is just trying to hold on to the zone. It's looking like it's coming back to that back and forth point that this started as we see Fruittella coming in and getting the zone once again.
Fine, I'll do it myself. I mean, when the flanking pen is what breaks things open, we've entered the Bizarro world. But yeah, you're absolutely right that this is now sort of in the back and forth spot. You see right now Q fighting it out with the edit on the other side, which means it's going to be a frontline scramble in the center. Jared does get the better of that. They weren't able to get the zone. Sure, okay, I was going to say just one more should give them, and that's going to be two that goes down. And with Jared in the crab tank, they'll try to stall it out, and it appears that they've done so. So Milky Way does get the better. I love the way that they're kind of using this flank. We saw Q use it, then Jared use it, and now Ice is making use of it. They always keep you guessing on this side and always force you to look this way.
When you know that it's going to be the same weapon flanking in that same spot over and over, it gets so predictable and you're just going to be able to anticipate that. But like you said, with Milky Way having different members of their team flanking, that's just completely, can make the other team not know what's going to happen and make them question how they want to approach things.
Well, there you go. That's the other side of the flank, though. Bran was taking that moment to go for the flank, and I think the other members of Fruittella had already identified where the other two were, dove on top and took them out, and that just meant it was Bran off by himself, which means it's going to be a swap of the lead, and they're actually in a pretty good spot. None of them have gone down just yet either, so even though they lost the zone, yeah, Slurpbot should be able to take the zone back here pretty quick, and they've got a Booyah Bomb as well. One or two more fights, they might have it, but I think one member dove, and maybe that Booyah Bomb was misplaced. I guess it did the job, though, got everybody else out of the way. Bran fighting the world and winning against the world on that side. He's not done yet. Bran takes 2.5 out, and okay, there you go, Rissa. Great plays. Great players make great plays. Blah.
Yeah, right? Any other person you might be like, okay, they are done for. But Bran was like, you know what? I can take on a 1v3, no big deal. Takes down 2 members while he's at that. And then now that has created this opening for the entire team of Milky Way to rush back in and hold the zone, get the lead here, and then get those jump-ins into mid. So that way they make sure they're very quickly into mid. They're coolered up as well. The other team is using their cooler too. And looks like this is going to be a clash right now as each team is just trying to make sure that they secure this zone heading into the last minute.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought up the last minute there, because Humpback is one of those stages where there is so much turf for you to build up your special from relative safety, kind of a hallmark of the Splatoon 2 stages. So there are plenty of opportunities for these teams to build up their set play and dive back in, and that's part of the reason why you see so many jumps out. Jared lasering over to take another player out. That's 2. Slurp pushed all the way back there with the slosher. There's, again, ample time for them to build up their specials, but they're probably only going to have 1 or 2 more cracks at it at this point, unless they can get 2 or 3 of these members of Milky Way down.
All right, Milky Way, they know that they need to be ready for specials coming in from Fruittella. Fruittella using the tri-strikes there to help them cap the zone. Looks like they're trying to rush through those as well to solidify capping the zone and holding it. But Milky Way was right there, and 2 members go down on the side of Milky Way, headed into overtime. Fruittella in control of the zone. Are they going to be able to hold this, 9?
Well, here you go. This is not that many penalty points for them to move through. You see Ice diligently building up these Tentamissiles, waiting for the right moment. Goes after 2. Now Bran gonna toss it in here. Will the Slayered specials be enough? Will it flip by itself? Will it be enough? There's still players up there turfing. Just a few more, but with 3 down, it's just Punchy, and that will not be enough. Milky Way finds the fights after the specials come through, and all the rest of these teams are so good at, as soon as the engagement specials go down, who is my target, where are they, and how do I get them to 100 damage?
Right. I love when I get to like watch someone streaming and hear like when they have a shot caller making specific calls and just learning through that in particular, because I'm sure on both teams here someone was making some good calls on each side because they were both making things happen, and just seeing how they were both able to just not hesitate, use their specials when they needed to, and make things happen off of that was so good. It didn't really feel like neither team or the other got locked out, really. It felt pretty back and forth in that first match.
Yeah, and to kind of go back to a point that we made earlier on, Humpback Pump Track, as many Splatoon 2 stages, gives you so many opportunities to build up your engagement specials and find a way to break back in. And to kind of get real micro-analysis here, I won't say the advantage fully goes to the attacker in situations like that, but when you on the defensive side have to respond to the opponent's specials, it means that when you see their triple ink strikes go out, you usually bring yours out second. And if that's the case, it means that you might be in the back half of your special when the opponent then comes and attacks you, because they threw their special out first. So again, that's one of those scramble situations at the end we could kind of break down and analyze in and of itself. But a great showing from Milky Way. They hold strong. Still have not dropped a game in losers, by the way. And it looks like Fruittella going to keep them on splat zones, but this time to Umami Ruins.
Okay, Umami Ruins. This is going to be the first time Nine and I have watched it here on the stream played out. This is one of those ones where I just immediately think of how tough the lockout can be on this one. If the other team is in your spawn, you are having a difficult time getting out here. So knowing that Fruittella picked this one in particular, very curious what their game plan here is and what the angles that they're going to have everyone take.
Let's see what the weapons are first. This is one where sometimes we'll see a change or two. Doesn't appear that it's going to be from either of these squads, though. Although, Ice is going to be switching over to the Forge, so kind of an interesting note there. Ice almost always will play a missile weapon when it is available, so they must really like something about the Booyah Bomb, or maybe some of the angles the Suction Bomb can play on here. So great show early on. I love kind of how the early scrambles go here because of how teams tend to stack up their attackers on this side. The Forge and really the pro class as a whole being able to fire at ranges that you're not familiar with is going to start the chaos and open it up a little bit for Milky Way. They'd love to kind of get a couple more here, but it appears now that they've got their backliner pushed up. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because their frontliners got taken down too quick. I'm just going to stop trying to figure out what goes on at the start of these games, Rissa, because I can't tell who's got a firmer hold.
I know, right? Right there, it looked like initially Milky Way, they were going to do a good job at least holding their side with Jared using that crab and just Jared and Q there holding space with their frontliners around that. But then all of a sudden, Fruittella here, they were the team that was able to take this top mid initially. That's really important on this map, is making sure that you have control of this top mid. But finally, Fruittella does have 2 members go down, so Milky Way they are going to be able to finally come in here and get the zone. But I mean, even though we're seeing Punchy here is just taking on the world here on this top mid with this Splash-O-Matic. Finally gets called out as well.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point there. Not only is it controlling top mid, it's what weapon did you take top mid with, right? Because earlier we saw Q was the one to go up to top mid. Not the best weapon at defending itself close range, especially if there's a special coming through. You see Punchy go up there, have some better results, but there were just too many frontliners still up there for Milky Way, and now they're going to start to cycle these specials. Somebody got over here on this side and turned it awfully orange. It appears that maybe it's Slurp. Ice is just diligently trying to keep this zone and figure out where the attackers are coming from. But they're finally in control, and it will be a swap to the lead.
Yeah, we're seeing Jared, Bran, and Ice there rushing forward together, taking on that team fight together. That is so important to make sure that you are not taking on fights alone and are doing it with your teammates. And they are already players that have that type of team synergy. They didn't even hesitate. They rushed forward and took that space immediately. And now finally they have the map painted blue. They're in control of the zone, and their points are counting down very quickly.
Very quick, and they still got control, okay, through all that, and they still have Q in a great position. They now know where the other 2 attackers are. Can they rotate back here and take out Punchy? If so, Q should be free to move. It's going to be a trade, and that push forward will give them at least... Okay, no, full-on control here. I thought it might have been sort of a desperate flip of the zone to put some points out, but they had what looked like a good position. I think that right now just the range that they're having to deal with here from Ice and lack of control of top mid has made it a scramble, but they've kept this one at least reasonably close. Fruittella fighting well and pushing members back. They just haven't quite got the firm hold.
Fruittella really having to figure out how they juggle the range of that Pro and Q's pencil, just the way that Milky Way is playing that and making sure that they guard areas of the map. Finally, Fruittella able to slowly come in here, take control of the zone. Punchy there once again on top mid and was using their crab tank to just solidify taking that space. Finally, though, Fruittella in control of the zone. They have no penalty points as well, but we see Milky Way. They got jump-ins coming in. They are not even hesitating here. They know that they need to take this zone back for themselves.
Well, you saw that Punchy was waiting there for the member that was guarding Q to move away. Now, Jared, here's your crab, and it gets shredded immediately. Oh my gosh, that went so fast. They applied a penalty there. That had to be the shortest amount of time that it could be held. I can't believe that they held it just long enough, and that may be the difference here as they go on. A couple members now have to scramble back out. When the zone gets flipped underneath you like that, suddenly your priorities have to change, and well, here you go. Now Milky Way with a couple players back in the center. It appears again for the time being, Ice living on this side and firing up at the center is the recipe for success. Gets a double for the trouble, and now a Booyah Bomb should slow things down a little bit. Milky Way hasn't quite gotten a firm hold. Finally, they do have control, and if they get Q back up on this center, I don't know if Fruittella is going to be able to break out again.
I know, with the 40 seconds remaining of this match and the way that Milky Way is setting up really nicely here to defend the zone, I don't know either if Fruittella is going to be able to get back into the zone. You can see they're staying back. They have their specials ready. They just need to make sure that they use them correctly. It looks like this is the opening that they need as they are able to take down Jared. We see Punchy using this crab as well to come in through the right side paired with the Booyah Bomb, and all of that paid off nicely for them as they are now in control of the zone. They just need to figure out how, if they can head into overtime, could hold the zone. They do have 2 members down though, and it's looking like Milky Way here is going to be able to come through and get the zone back.
Yeah, and watching this now as the game kind of crawls, you start to see that Milky Way may have given them that zone flip. I mean, they didn't exactly lay down, they were still firing forward, but Bran jumped out awful early in that fight, maybe a little earlier than he would have normally if they needed that. They had the specials there. They knew that the members of Fruittella were going to run right into their base to try to push forward in that position. As long as you have someone who's sort of outside the base at that point and can get your specials out, that's going to do it. Milky Way, knowing what resources they had, knowing what they had to do to end the game at that point, will close it out. Kind of a weird zones game, though, Rissa. There were all
Hmm.
of these weird scrambles in the center, and I called out Ice a couple of times here. Just that extra range to be able to play from relative safety on the side when you're firing up to the center really, I think, opened things up in some positions that Fruittella may have had an opportunity to score some big points.
Seemed like Ice was almost acting almost kind of like an anchor in a way and just holding down that one position and just poking at anyone who tried to come towards them. And then on the other side, if you are having, Ice holding down one area and then there are three remaining members of Milky Way causing chaos on the other side of the map, that's really difficult to approach and figure out how to even approach that and get past all that.
Well, and we always know that on Umami Ruins, typically your pencil player is going to kind of rotate either between back left mid, on your own grates on the right, which is again still pretty far back, or they're going to be up in the center and either on the front edge of that middle kind of banister area or the backside. So if you know where the opposing backliner is typically going to be, when you have a weapon that can actually threaten that backliner from a relatively decent position, I think it totally changes the dynamic. And we also saw that game why Ice switched over to the Forge. The bomb is good, but when you have a Booyah bomb that you can kind of throw across to affect the other zone, the one that you're not currently firing at, it really does give you a nice little, I won't say a safety button, because of course the opponent can still do something about it, but it makes a lot of sense. I will say now, Milky Way still has not dropped a game. Also, this is it for Fruittella if they can't figure it out.
That's true. We're in the loser side of the bracket, so if Fruittella is not able to win this next game and then head into a game 4 versus Milky Way, this will be it for them. I mean, this is feeling similar to that last match we watched on stream where there's like signs of it's definitely possible, it definitely can happen. It's just trying to, I don't know, it's difficult. Milky Way is so strong, and just figuring out it's almost like, how do you approach a team that has so much synergy as much as they do? That's one of the really difficult things at this high of a level, is how do you approach a team that already preemptively knows what they're all going to do in different situations.
Yeah, their ability to improvise has always impressed me. Like, even back when, this was sort of even a Splatoon 2 era starburst with a few of these players, their ability to have, and, we sort of saw it on the flanks in the Humpback game, to always have someone doing something that sort of affects the game state in a positive way, right? If the one player that you want to flank isn't there, but you're there, you need somebody flanking. You need somebody taking the eyes off the opponent. Get over there and do it yourself. And they have a great understanding of their weapons, what weapons are good at what. And they all play pretty good weapons to begin with, so it's not really a huge discussion point. So great on them to improvise. And as we've seen these last couple of games, great at playing the clock, knowing exactly what they need to do just to close the door and get the game done. And yeah, here we go, Rissa. Fruittella. They are going down on splat zones and will not pick something else until they are forced to.
They are committed to splat zones. They are comfortable with that, and apparently that's what they're going to stick with. It's always interesting in situations like this because it feels like everyone in general is comfortable with splat zones, so they are really, really comfortable with it and just really committing to sticking to it. And headed to Barnacle and Dime, another popular map for the Splatoon NA League. That was played a decent amount as well. So, man, what's gonna happen?
Well, I would wager that the pencil players are going to be real good. If I had to take a stab at listen, pencil's good everywhere, but on this stage in particular, I mean, just if you ever get a replay code of a top pencil player, just watch the atrocities they can commit here. But conversation for another time. Okay, it is the Forge. I was gonna say that's probably the only real question as to what's gonna be played here, but I think we've seen over and over in these games the scramble situations Fruittella can keep up. When it comes time to do set play and lock out and trade it out there, it's been all Milky Way.
Definitely. Milky Way here starting out. Looks like they flanked around, and we're seeing Ice there really acting aggressively towards Punchy and Slurp there, rushing forward, playing around. This Punchy is hunting down Ice right now. Went from the right side of the map to the left side of the map, made sure that they hunted Ice down. Ice was called out there, but we see Bran here guarding this right side of the map as the zone does flip over to Fruittella, where this is kind of the classic start for these two teams. It's chaotic. Both teams are getting the zone back and forth.
Let's see here. Did they? No, I was going to say the real question was going to be if Slurp tried to dive on the opponent's side, their own plat, and it appears the answer is no. So, I mean, maybe that one opportunity where they could have pushed for a little bit more, they'll have to stay it safe. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jared not wasting any time, even opted to fight that out knowing that he had Crab Tank. So now he's in a Crab Tank in this position, and now, oh, this could get ugly, Rissa. You and I have been locked out on this stage plenty of times. It is not easy to get a foothold.
No, it is not fun. This has got to be one of the worst lockouts. Just the feeling of it. You can't drop down. You're going to get immediately called out if you drop down, as we're seeing. Oh no, Bran taking a swim there. We got to watch that from this point of view. But yeah, you can't drop down. You're going to get called out. On the upper ledges, you can still get called out by long-range weapons and specials. 3 members down, though, for Milky Way. Fruittella here finally is able to break through and get into the zone and get control of it.
Well, there you go. How do you break back in against Milky Way? You hope that Bran takes a swim. That's how you do it. Listen, there ain't any tactical that's going to save you from that play. And now Slurp, sensing the moment, moves forward there, fights it out, almost ended up getting Q here. Now does rotate back. They've got the players they want in that position. But you see, just in those moments where one rotates out, they kind of get stuck in no man's land where they're not really sure if they need to dive forward, if they need to move back. And if you hesitate even slightly, the members of Milky Way will find you and attack you for that, and it's a wipe out there from what I would argue was a good position from Fruittella. It just changes so quickly.
Yeah, Fruittella definitely set themselves up very nicely there. They were starting to take position, watch where Milky Way was coming out of their spawn, but just the explosive synergy, I want to say, from Milky Way. They just immediately know what positions to take, how to approach things really quickly, and they are in control of the zone. We see strikes coming out from Fruittella. That is going to allow them to cap the zone once again. So now, again, we're in this position where Fruittella, they have the zone. They just need to set up and guard that zone effectively in good positions that'll keep them safe, but still allow them to get the picks onto Milky Way.
Great positioning again. Fruittella has been in this game the entire time. Gets 2, and that could be the double that is necessary. It's just Q, and yeah, gonna have to jump all the way out here. Now they've got their players in the position they want. You can see the Sharks. They don't have a ton of special meter to their name because they've opted to go for the sharking side instead, and there wasn't a whole lot of turf. Can they hold on? They would love to get the lead here. Of course, they'd love more. Right now, a nice triple ink strike is going to at least ensure that. The S-Blast is down, but now Punchy moves up and opts to fight Q. Great positioning here. Should be able to take it out. They will lose the zone, but they still should have control of the board as a whole. But now Jared moves forward here. It's 3 down, and again, just one opening. All the Milky Way needs. Fruittella got what they came for, but now they're pushed way far back, Rissa, and they're going to need to find something out of nothing.
They are in the lead, but I mean, with the way that Milky Way is set up right now, ooh, okay, I was gonna say Milky Way is set up really nicely right now to defend the zone, but 2 members go down on the side of Milky Way. Fruittella, are they gonna be in this? There goes that Booyah Bomb. We see some burst bombs coming as well to paint the zone around that Booyah Bomb, and now once again Fruittella is in control of the zone. There's a minute left of this match, and it almost seems like Fruittella is starting to get their momentum. They just have to play this really carefully because Milky Way, they know when you hesitate and they know when to take advantage of it.
Well, they've done a really remarkable job of finding ways to push out. I think, the Crab Tank has been the big piece coming out of Punchy. I think the question now is going to be, will they start pre-firing in the areas that those Crab Tanks usually come from? Because if that's the only threat, that could be it. And now, Jared, here we go. It's the Crab Tank, the Crab v Crab on this side, firing over there and melts through the Crab Tank. This should be the lead for Milky Way, and they will take it. Fruittella now has to dive. All the members of Milky Way in a great position to hold through even one of these specials. They'll flip it with 15 seconds left. Rissa, they've got to find players from Milky Way's side. The zone won't be enough.
It won't. You can see Punchy there try to run forward and know that they need to stop the members of Milky Way from painting the zone. And right now, Fruittella is doing everything they can to try and paint the zone, try and poke at the members of Milky Way painting the zone. But it just wasn't enough. Milky Way knew that they needed to stay back and play very safely there at the end. Milky Way taking game 3 and taking this set of alpha losers semis versus Fruittella.
Man, so many of the Splat Zones only sets that we see, you can kind of see beyond simply being comfortable with Splat Zones, why teams like going to Splat Zones. Because in every single one of those Splat Zones games, there was a moment where you're like, okay, Fruitella's got this, or they've got a chance. You always have a fighting chance in Splat Zones is how it feels sometimes when you're trading back and forth. and you're building up and flipping penalties and doing everything you can to keep the game going. But in all of those situations, when it came down to those scrambles at the end, Milky Way, the right timing, knowing that they're going to get rushed. So you start pre-firing the angles that the opponents are going to rush you from, and you close it out. A tip of the cap to you, Fruittella. Fourth place is what they will take, and a great run on the loser's side, and a hard run too. Again, they did get that 3-2 victory over Bet in losers quarterfinals just to get the match with Milky Way, but a great showing from them nonetheless as Milky Way continues the run.
Man, this is starting this is like towards the beginning of this match too, when it was like, okay, it was back and forth. Milky Way had the lead substantially, but finally it seemed like Fruittella was starting to get their momentum going. And I even said it commentating there towards the end. I was like, okay, it looks like Fruittella is actually getting that momentum that they needed, but just the way that Milky Way is able to preemptively do things, like you were saying, just really allows them to have that upper hand here against Fruittella.
Oh. When you see a team that's good at splat zones, they kind of have everything going for them. I don't know. It's kind of a moot point at this point because, like, clearly these players are good at all of these different modes. But you
Mhm.
love watching a team that can consistently get it done at the end of these crazy scrambles in splat zones. And depending on what player it is, depending on what weapon it is, there's always another hero to be had. So